A game of inches. Right. So we'll have one more question, Mick. I did.
Gareth, I just thought it was interesting. It seemed like there was a bit of a parallel between when you were talking about just culture and situational awareness. So I think I've got a unique perspective that in my previous life as a powder monkey and coming through mining industries I think I was fortunate to have seen when that was done really well, the just culture on the tail end was actually what they framed what you were taught on or how you were taught. And very similarly in let's call it easy, ICAM, when you're talking, say, causal analysis, was also part of the training framework. So I was kind of interested to see when you talked about what just really is a learning framework. I think it's not just about the learning framework, but it's about what you're learning about. So if you're being judged on something, for it to be just, it needs to be something that you've been given the information on, trained on, given the tools to actually succeed in it. That's where I see the mismatch there, not necessarily with the actual framework of just culture or causal motivation or anything like that, but have you been given the tools to follow that through? I just thought that was an interesting kind of a parallel there.
Absolutely. And what if you haven't got hold of Ivan Papili's latest book, Human Organization Potential, he talks about margin for maneuver. And what we're talking about is the gap between the sort of the threat and where you're operating. And what we want to do is capacity. We want to increase that margin, that capacity. And you do that by telling stories and you understand the context so you can spot things before they become critical. Often after investigations or something's gone wrong, people say, don't do that. And by that, they often mean the outcome. Well, I can't do anything about the outcome. When it arrives, great. You know, I've just smacked my thumb with a hammer or I've just mashed my hand in a piece of equipment. Don't do that again. Yeah, thanks. Shit. Actually, what are the things that we're looking for is the cues and clues that lead us to understand what's going on. And Rob Fisher's work is good on that, the mental models piece of understanding the context that leads to an adverse event or the context that leads to a problem that's then solved. And so what we're trying to do is that learning loop, and I'll send something else to Stephen, learning in loops and the learning review guide. And it's all about getting your team to spot something that's important or relevant before it becomes so critical you can't recover the situation. So you've got time and space. And I'm always learning. A session that I ran a week and a half ago in Washington, DC, training class, and somebody said, but surely the speed at which you're operating or the speed at which change happens has an impact on how important situation awareness is. So if something changes really quickly, you have to have a vision that goes out much further. So your capacity, your margin has to be longer in time so you can detect, recognize it, and then do an adjustment. But if you just have a fixed margin in time, the space you're in might be moving too quickly that you can't recover it.
That a space where you see well designed and thought out golden rule play a part though, Gareth?
I would say it's not
bang your thumb kind of thing, but
I would say it's not a golden rule. I would say it's the fact that you're giving people pointers to say this might come up. But in any space, even in aviation space, that there are no golden rules. There are principles about safe operations, but there's always this caveat that says the pilot doesn't have to follow these as long as they've got the experience and they can justify why they did it. And the problem with golden rules is it simplifies the training process to understand the context around that. And that to me is the big issue with golden rules is you don't train people around the context that's there so they can spot the proverbial about to hit the fan.